my channel. I'm Neha Parashar, working in a healthcare company and based in Germany. In today's video, we are on second part of step 4 during IND preparation, and we are going to talk about two things. First, what are the types of FDA form for IND application, and second, what is the purpose of each of these forms? So let's start. There are different types of FDA forms which are included as part of IND application. These forms are mandatory, and if we do not include them as part of our IND application, then our application will be incomplete and we would need to submit these forms, right? So the first one is Form 1571. This is an application form and very important as it is part of all types of IND, irrespective of it is commercial IND or a research IND. So this is a very important form. Then the question comes in our mind, who submit this form? So these forms are submitted by sponsor, that is by pharmaceutical companies. And what is the purpose of this form? This form has two main purposes. First, this is kind of cover page for all IND submissions. Not only for initial INDs but also for any follow-up amendments or annual reports, right? And second, in this form, pharmaceutical companies claim that they agree that they will carry out the clinical studies in compliance to all the applicable FDA regulations. We should make sure that the date of signature of cover letter should match with the date of signed copy of this Form 1571. Then comes our next form, that is Form 1572. This is called as Statement of Investigator. As the name is self-explanatory, Statement of Investigator means investigator who is going to perform the study sign this form. He updates and sends this form to sponsor, and then it's sponsor responsibility that they submit this form to FDA along with IND application. This form need to be submitted whenever submitting an IND application. Then a completed FDA 1572 form must be submitted from each site. Whenever changing an investigator or a new site, then this form should be submitted within 30 days of investigator's addition. Whenever changing any site related information, for example, change in any IRB, laboratory or clinical site related information, then this form needs to be submitted. What is the purpose of this form? Again, this form has two purposes. Investigator claims by this form that he is experienced enough to conduct these clinical studies, and that's why an up-to-date CV or statement of qualification of investigator is added along with that. And the second purpose is to certify that he will conduct the investigation in compliance to FDA regulation. And in this form, investigator claims and agree that he comply with FDA regulations and will inform the sponsor about any important information. So, by this form, investigator agrees that he will inform the sponsor about any important information. For example, side effect, adverse drug reaction or any other information which sponsor should know. So, investigator should inform this information to sponsor, and he agrees about this in this Form 1572. Then the next form is which is called 3674. This form is also called a certificate of compliance. And which compliance it is referring to? Do you remember in my previous video we talked about the FDA has a requirement that the clinical trial should be registered on public website called clinicaltrial.gov? Do you remember that? So this form is certified by sponsor for all initial IND submission, and whenever you are submitting your IND protocols to INDs, the purpose of this form is that by this form, companies agree that they will follow this requirement of registering their clinical trials to this clinicaltrials.gov. So these were the three important forms. Now there are three additional forms. The first one is Form 3926. This is submitted by physician for special type of INDs which is called single patient expanded access. I will make a video in future to explain this special concept. The last two forms are Form 3454 and Form 3455. Both these forms are related to financial interest and arrangement. The companies need to make sure that clinical investigator who is involved in clinical studies does not have any financial interest with these studies. Let me explain you in an easy way. If I'm a clinical investigator and if I'm investigating a particular drug as a part of clinical studies for XYZ company, and if I have any financial connection with that company, for example, if I hold any significant equity in that company, right, then I can be biased while studying that drug for that company, right? And not only me, but if my spouse or any of my dependent family member holds such equity, I can be biased towards it. That's why this concept or this form was introduced, that such information needs to be disclosed by investigator to FDA to avoid such biases during the clinical studies. That's why Form 3454 is submitted to certify that investigator has no financial interest, and if investigator has a financial interest, then Form 3455 is submitted to disclose the nature of that interest, like what kind of interest investigator has. So both these forms 3454 and 3455, they are important for a transparency purpose to disclose any financial interest of the clinical investigator to avoid any kind of biasness in the study. So these were all types of forms which we should include while preparing our IND application. But now before we end this video, do you know once this IND is ready with all the content, how these are submitted or sent to USFDA? If you know the answer, then let me know in the comment section. But if not, don't worry, I'll talk about this concept in the next video. Till then, let's stay tuned for the next upcoming videos.